Okay, hello everybody in Robot Land. This is Mike again. So it's been a while since I've done a podcast on robotics. Part of the reasons why is summer and 4th of July and so on. But and also I've had this. I've been having not issues, but I've been trying to figure out exactly what it costs to build a humanoid robot right now. And so much information has occurred, at least that I've seen in the last few weeks, that it's making it maybe not harder, but there's just so much to try to get through and analyze and to figure out and so on. So originally, a couple weeks ago, I tried to create and run my own Monte Carlo simulation. Okay. I thought that was going to be all really I needed to do, and I'd be done, and I can move on to other topics to talk about. But as you'll see as I talk, that I'm probably going to get incomplete on this as far as I maybe have to do another podcast and another podcast. And this may be a subject that just keeps going on and on and on and on. So this cost thing is interesting. At least I'm finding it very fascinating as an engineer to try to understand the thinkings and what's all going on in the accounting side, the business side, the supply chain side, all the elements that come together that we can figure out how much a human or robot is cost to build, not retail price, but cost to build. The one thing I do know for sure is most a high percentage of your cost to build is going to be the actuators, servos, actuators of the robot. And as you'll see, I might not be able to get to all the information I have, but as you'll see, actuators seem to be a huge stumbling block for a lot of companies. Uh, Tesla is just one of the many companies where cheap actuators aren't the way to go. I basically is what I'm trying to say. So let's start from where I started a couple weeks ago, maybe almost 3 weeks ago. Um, so I created this Monte Carlo simulation because I wanted to try to see what the basically the business accounting people were seeing. So uh, as you see, you're probably seeing on the screen that I'm using Google Gemini to help me try to get my code and my numbers right. I'm kind of using Google Gemini as a third party advisor, an unbiased advisor to give me opinions and also to be somebody to check my code, basically desk checking my code, making sure my code's working right, and so on, which is kind of cool. It's got really good at this stuff. So it's helped me come up with numbers, figures, averages, um, and so on. So I can then put these into the simulation to try to get it unbiased because even when I was running the simulations, I was like, well, these numbers are way too low, but I'm going to go with these numbers just because, like I said, it's kind of like I'm using the AI is giving me a kind of an unbiased, unopinionated, hopefully unopinionated, um, kind of journal numbers that I can input into the simulation and I can get some kind of output that, you know, people won't say, "Oh, you're just padding the numbers or you're fixing the numbers or you're making the numbers support what you think." So I wanted to bring that up a little bit because not all these numbers are mine. These are Google Gemini based numbers or a combination of me and mine, kind of average and kind of so on. Okay, so I also had Google Gemini help me give this little cool front end thing. So when I run the simulation, it looks cool. Just not a console, Python console production. I can show you the Python, the Python code and the little really not nice, not pretty, not nice, but not pretty looking example. And even this is kind of it's kind of yeah, but it's a lot better than I could do. I'm not very color coordinated and so on. I'm an engineer. I'm not a business person or accountant or digital media person or whatever. Okay, so when I run this my simulation that I've been working on, did 10,000. So these are my cost assumptions, actuators and drivetrains. So this times 30, I'm hearing more and more this times 30 may be greater than that because hands seem to be a huge sticking point right now as far as having a good enough hand to do what everything you want as a general purpose humanoid robot. The actuators and degrees of freedom in the hand are just unbelievable. Just just look at we can talk about hands later and some of the hand designs I've seen, but the amount of actuators needed in hands are and the complexity of hands are just going bonkers right now. And I think that's why a lot of companies are struggling to meet some of these lofty or low, sorry, not lofty, but low price goals or price targets or assumptions how cheap a humanoid robot is to make, which I've always said some of the assumptions, business assumptions I've seen has just been unbelievable. Okay, so you can probably see on the screen, I got a $12,000 likely, sensor suites, tactile sensors, IMUs. We can talk about each individual area later. Let's just get to the numbers. Around 3,000 likely, computers and electronics around 4,000 likely, chassis and materials around 3,500 likely. This is an interesting number. We can talk about this more, but this number, the chassis and materials, um, I think this definitely can come down as you mass produce. The more robots you mass produce, chassis and materials will likely really can really go down fast. Then finally, software, R&D, and putting it together. Um, if you have an automated mass production line that has very little need for human input, you could probably get this automated to the point where you're producing millions and millions. And if you're doing that, this cost will definitely drop too. So I'm saying about 12,000, but you're still having to factor in R&D and software. So most of the humanoid robots now are using an AI or being trained. They're getting an AI like NVIDIA, Tesla, and so on are creating an LLM, and then they're fine tuning it to be a humanoid robot to do visual inputs and other things to get the AI to do stuff. So the reason why I'm kind of stopping here for a second is because a lot of companies are spending billions and billions of dollars developing a, uh, doing the first initial training of the LLM. So Tesla might be able to say that since we're creating this LLM for cars and robots, and their AI on X and XAI is doing all this work, that maybe we don't have to recoup all that R&D and R&D costs just by the sale of the Optimus robot. But you've got to factor that in somehow. Somehow somebody's got to those tens of billions or whatever, hundreds of billions of dollars being invested in AI has got to be recouped somewhere. They got to make money off that somehow. Um, and then that's basically the software R&D Yeah, the RD, I mean, because I've heard, uh, maybe not rumors, but I've heard that some of these one-off robots are in the millions. Humanoid robots are in the millions because it costs so much to make the first one. And then, but of course, as you make more and more, the price will go down and so on. Just like in the military, the Air Force is always saying, like the B-2 stealth bomber costs so much money because they only made 20 of them or 21 of them when they were going to make hundreds of them. So you got all the R&D cost and everything has to be bundled in a smaller amount. So as you produce millions and billions or whatever humanoid robots, then you can spread out the R&D and software cost. So anyway, try to bore you too much. Let's just keep going. So when I run my simulation, most of the time, if you look at it, it's given a medium cost around over 40, between 40, but usually between about 40 and 50,000 material cost, development cost, software cost, everything for a humanoid robot. So the mean cost is 46,603. Oh, sorry, mean cost is 46,603. Median cost is 46,011. $11. Standard deviation is about 9,000, 9,500, 9,489. Fifth percentile. This is like everything is like perfect. This is like a perfect scenario where uh you get a really awesome cost for to build a humanoid robot, and that's $32,306. And the one that seems to be the most common is $63,338. This is just the cost of building. I'm trying to put all the costs in. This is the cost for like a robot company to produce a fully ready to go humanoid robot today is around $63,000 a piece. So that's the normal, that's the 95% percentile outcome. Don't ask me to explain this chart. I'm probably going to have to do a little bit more research exactly what all this chart's trying to say. But as you can see, this is just a frequency of the price ranges and so on. This is my best shot at the Monte Carlo simulation. And it says here, this is just kind of, so the fifth and 95th, percentiles represent the optimistic low cost and the pessimistic high cost. So I'm not saying my Monte Carlo is a perfect, but I think this is a pretty biased look at the price right now based on AI and internet searches and all kinds of things. So I'm thinking, I think that's not a bad cost. It's a little lower than I would if I was doing all the numbers. I would say that at least the initial runs are going to be over 100,000, 100 to 150,000 a piece. I'm talking, 100, 100 runs of 100, 1,000. I don't think you're really going to get a huge price drop until you start producing, in the millions where you can get it down cheap. But this is just my shot at trying to come up with a cost. Now, this is where, this is where my numbers, let me bring up what ARK Invest and some other people have been saying about numbers. Sorry, I posted these numbers, and of course, when I get ready to talk about my numbers, X is not being nice to me. X is making it very difficult. I should have wrote these numbers down. Sorry. X is making it really difficult for me to bring up ARK Invest numbers. I thought that was fascinating to look at ARK Invest numbers. Sorry. Okay. Okay, I just gave you my numbers. So ARK Invest numbers are their Monte Carlo is average cost is a little over $100,000. That seems reasonable to me. 70% of the time, the cost is between 75K and 125K. That to me is reasonable. 100 to 150K. The other 30% of the time, the cost never exceeds 250K or falls below 50K. So they're basically saying, it could probably start out around 100K to 125 to build a humanoid robot. And at least in the beginning, it's going to be, uh, it's not going to fall below 50, and it's probably not going to be over 250,000. So that's a huge range, but it's reasonable. I think, 100 to 150,000, 200,000. I don't know if you got a really complicated, complex hand, at least now. So their numbers are actually a little higher than my Monte Carlo, but their numbers seem very realistic to me. Except I think they're still a little bit low based on some of the things I've been seeing lately, but we'll get into that. Okay. So that's ARK Invest. They're usually pretty good with these things. Now, okay, this is Morgan Stanley. This is getting kind of old now. Morgan Stanley saying 50 to 60,000 per unit. This number this number is interesting because I'll bring out some of the things that's been hearing lately about Tesla. This is what's really causing me to think I need to rethink and maybe do another podcast about humanoid robot cost and try to explain it better because it does look like actuators are the issue. Uh, Not manufacturing at a high rate is definitely an issue. You got to produce. It's just like the Henry Ford example. If you make a few of them, they're gonna cost a lot. But if you could make millions, you could get the price down. So, and the Walmart philosophy, sell lots at a low margin. Um, I'm not a business person, so don't shoot me. Okay. So Morgan Stanley saying 50 to 60,000. I think this is kind of out of date. ARK Invest is saying probably 100,000 to start. Now, here we go. These are the articles that I've been seeing lately in the last week or so about Tesla. Tesla has stopped production of the Optimus right now because they're trying to fix some issues and problems they're having. Uh, the interesting thing we can talk about the overheating of the knee joints and the hip joints. They're having a problem with that. They're having a problem with the hand. So they're talking to their suppliers. Uh, we go into more depth on this. I might spend like 15, 20 minutes on this. Yeah, they've got issues with their hand. Some of these are rumors, but they do seem to like where there's smoke, there's fire. Uh, they're definitely having issues with the hand, making the hand as flexible as our hand. It's causing them all kinds of problems, which is totally understandable. Um, yeah, heat problems, mechanical efficiencies, overall weight. Yeah, the other thing about their hands are heavy, which is also very understandable, is their hands are not being able to pick up really heavy objects because they're not really designed to pick up heavy objects. They're designed to be able to do, really stuff, like thread needles and pick up eggs and use a lot of delicate small little tools and stuff. And they're having a problem where if the robot is going to pick up heavy objects, you really don't need a hand that can do a lot of intricate, to do a lot of things uh, that our human hand can do. Okay. Um, the interesting thing here in the article, so they're suspending production for a while, supply chain issues. And of course, I brought up the wrong article. Yeah, unfortunately, it looks like I brought up the wrong article. I can find the right article, but there's actually one that says their suppliers, the supply chain, all the parts, not the put together parts, all the parts, all the parts being bought to put together the Optimus robot. Yeah, yeah, I definitely grabbed the wrong. See what unless they edited the article, because I just read this very recently. Uh, yeah, instead of stumbling and bumbling around trying to find that figure, one of these, so I've read many articles about the issues that it's having, that Tesla's having with Optimus, and they actually quote a figure from the supply chain saying that it's about $60,000 for all the parts through their supply chain to build a Optimus robot. So that's to me that's very interesting because that hits some of my assumptions and some of the things that I've been working on is that uh, that's actually a little higher uh, than some my simulation, but it's also a little bit lower than Morgan Stanley or ARK Invest. Now, what we could be seeing is that Tesla's redesigning. Looks like they're gonna have to redesign their hand, and they're working on their supply chains issues and all that kind of stuff. So their initial version, like Gen 3, I think is what the generation they're on, is going to cost them in the ballpark of $60,000 for all the parts. So that's probably not including because Tesla said in the past that they cannot buy off the shelf actuators, and that's true if they're just buying motors and then putting together the actuators with their different servo horns and the harmonic drives and whatever they're using to keep backlash from happening and so on. They're basically the gearing. Um, Probably need to talk about harmonic drives and all those kinds of ways to keep backlash from happening. But the what happens is you include those, you get somebody to try to build those. If you're not if you're trying to build those in-house, you just get the parts and you're going to have to put them together. Or if you're trying to get the actuators built by another company, um, then that can be very expensive because if you have, especially the hips and the legs and the knees, We'll have to have the harmonic drives in them or some way to get rid of backlash. Sorry, I'm kind of rambling here, but what I'm saying is that that 60,000 probably doesn't include putting everything together, just the pile of parts to build a robot. So that's just the pile of parts to build a robot. If you don't have a mass production line that could make millions and it's automated and so on, I could easily see the initial batches in the thousands if they're all hand built, because there's pictures of them actually building their robots on rigs and jigs and stuff like that. Then yes, that could easily be thousands, if not tens of thousands, on the cost of the putting the robot together. Humans have to do that because with the robot as complex as that, I'm sure it doesn't take a few hours. It may take a few days for a human to put it all together, get everything working, and they got to test it and all that kind of stuff. Uh, so kind of rambling. I'll probably have to come back and retouch this issue, kind of get my thoughts more around all this information that's being thrown at I've seen and thrown at me. But basically, when all the business people are telling me that it all comes down to this, when all the business people are telling me for humanoid robots to work, uh, they have to be under 20,000. Uh, some have even predicted the humanoid robots will be $5,000 to build. So right now, from all the evidence that I have, at least in the next year or few years, I don't see how a $5,000 price is realistic. I don't see how a $10,000 price is realistic. I don't even see how a $15,000 or $20,000 price is realistic. Uh, so I mean, these are my opinions, but I think I have enough evidence now and all the information we're seeing now to show that um, the $20,000 uh, price is being thrown around, or under 20,000 or under 30,000. Unless one company is making millions of humanoid robots, I don't see how it's possible to get it under 50 or 60,000 right now. That's just if you're gonna be able to sell the robots at a loss, but it looks like it's 50, 60,000 for the parts and the software and putting it together and all that other stuff. I think I have to say that my price prediction of 150, maybe even 200,000, especially if the issues everybody's having with the hands are true, that they're having trouble developing a hand that can be both strong and do a lot of small, intricate things that our hands can do. Because our hands are both strong and we can do very small, intricate things with our hands. So that could be a huge problem. And that could be a huge initial cost is to develop that hand and the cost of that hand. Because even, what is it? Unitree's G1, uh, yeah, their base G1 doesn't have a hand. It has a wrist. It really doesn't have a hand. It has 23 servos. The G1 EDU has, I think it has that one has a hand, and that's a lot more expensive than that 16. So, oh, and yeah, to throw another thing into all this to contemplate that there is out there in the world. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly the price on the Unitree G1. So the Unitree G1, let's get back there one for real quick. The Unity Unitree's G1 is the one that everybody's saying is 16,000, but that is just for a robot that doesn't have a hand. That's that's this Unitree. This is not the one that's 16,000. This is the educational version that's, 2 or 3 times more expensive than that. And I've heard rumors that the servos are overheating, stripping gears, quality of the actuators is not the greatest. Then that's, I think, is what his Tesla's running into. Okay, then finally, K-Scale Labs is developing a open source 3D printed or easy to put together robot. The G1, Unitree G1, I'm guessing that cost for their actuators are around 100, maybe 150 a piece. And they got 20. I'm sure they're probably building those in-house, or they've got a company that's building them for them on the cheap because it's China. And of course, because it's China, you're getting cheap servos and you're having issues with the servos overheating and stripping of gears and so on, and backlash issues over time. Okay, so and then K-Bot, I'm not 100 sure where they get their actuators. I'm not even sure what their actuators are. But they're selling their robot for about 1,100. No, I'm sorry, 11 11,000 $11,000. So I need to do more investigation about their robot and how well it's doing. But this is another kind of throws a little bit of wrinkle in there. Of course, the one with the hands more expensive, and so on. This one will be interesting to follow because there's a lot of 3D printing and DIY building of this robot. And this will be interesting to follow. Uh, if this is really a, you know, mass production, this is kind of like a beta, open source, let's have fun project. This is not a full, this is not something you make means of and it's ready to go and everything. So this price, okay, this price, 11,000. Okay, this is getting to where, that under 20,000 price range, but I think there's a lot of compromises that were done to make this happen. So there we go. Uh, so when people say under 20, under 30, to recap real fast, when people say under 20, under 30, that's if you're making millions. Right now, we're still in the development. There's still a lot of issues with the hands, overheating, actuator problems. Actuators are the main cost of a humanoid robot, always have been, always will be. You've got to be able to mass produce actuators. I think that's also another issue. Until you can mass produce actuators uh, on a uh, basically autonomous assembly line, you got robot hands, robots building the actuators, robot hands building the actuators, and you get that cost down. Actuators are going to be huge cost, huge driving cost of what a humanoid robot is. Okay. So I think I'm going to stop now. Think about the subject more and maybe do another short uh, video podcast trying to, because I threw a lot of stuff out there, but I think the only thing I can say, this is not saying, I'm not saying human robots always, I've been talking about human robots since 2005. I'm not bashing everybody or saying, hey, this human robots aren't going to happen. I just say there's a lot of issues we have to work through. Uh, okay. Hopefully I haven't bored everybody. Uh, Lots is happening. It seems like every day, every hour, I read or see something new about different companies developing humanoid robots and so on. And so. Okay. So I hope you found this entertaining and informational. I hope to see you again on my next podcast. Hopefully to do another one by the end of the week, maybe covering or giving more detail or explaining myself a little bit better after, I check this video out. So, okay. Thanks for tuning in. Hope to see you on my next podcast. Um, at this point, I'm always happy to hear what other people think and opinions on pricing and the world of humanoid robots because there's probably stuff I'm missing, but this is my best opinion, best guess of what's going on. So, see you in the next one. And bye.